Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 182 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. Hope you're having a fantastic, amazing, wonderful week. Let's jump into today's episode. We are going to be talking about a question, or not a question, but actually a statement that I get all the time. I'm in charge of marketing now, or I've been tasked with marketing. What should I do? Which I guess that is a question. So if you've been tasked with marketing and you're not sure what to do, I think this is going to be a really helpful series. This is going to be a 4-part series. This is going to be an overview of the next 3 parts and kind of giving you an general of what you should be doing. I think it's going to be extremely practical and very, very helpful. So I'm really excited about this, and I think that you're going to love it. So let's jump into the podcast. But before we do, I just want to mention a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. That would be great. And if you have any questions or any comments, you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. The best place to do that is inside the Facebook group, The Veterinary Marketing Nerds. If you go to facebook.com/groups/The Veterinary Marketing Nerds, you can request to join. It's completely free. There's some of the smartest people in the whole wide world inside of there. And you can ask questions, get help, collaborate, all kinds of good stuff inside that group. That's the best place to go. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. So if you're the person that's been tasked with marketing, I'm going to say this before we begin. I think that if you're a person who doesn't like marketing, or, well, you're probably not listening to this if that's not you. But if you're trying to figure out maybe who you should task with marketing, or I think that there's an important mindset to really bring into marketing. It's that I get to do this. If you're the person who feels like I get to do this, this is my baby, I'm going to take this and make it work, and I'm going to figure out what to do, instead of I have to do this. And I think that's a really important distinction, and it's subtle, but it's important. If you have somebody in your practice that has to do the marketing, and they don't like doing it, they hate it, it's something that they're not interested in, marketing is constantly changing. And the principles don't change, but you have to have a drive for it. You have to really love it. Facebook is always changing. Google is always changing. Instagram is always changing. So it takes a lot of management. And if you just are going to say, hey, you know what, this person up at the front desk, they have to do our marketing now. Do they really want to do it? Is this going to really benefit you and your practice to have this person who doesn't have any interest in it be the one that's running your boat? And I think, most practices, you're doing typically a tremendous amount of volume in sales. And for the average business that was doing, let's say $1 million a year in revenue, they would have a full-time marketing person, working on their behalf. And I think that you are probably doing yourself a disservice if you're just trying to kind of cut the budget and trying to get it working by having somebody who doesn't really have an interest in it be the person that is doing it. I see this all the time, that if the person doing the marketing is not somebody who loves marketing, you're not going to get good results, you're not going to be able to track results, and it's going to be done super sporadically. Even if you love it, it's hard to do sometimes because it's tiring, it's changing constantly. And so I just wanted to put that caveat out there, that if you're going to be putting somebody in charge, or if you're the person in charge and you don't love it, then be honest with it. I think that a lot of times people try to be, people pleasers, or, that's my personality. I always tend to say yes, even when it's not necessarily the best thing. So, be honest. If you're not the person that wants to do it, say, hey, as much as I would love to do this, this isn't my passion. But anyways, I think you get what I'm saying here. Let's talk about, though, I think there's 3 phases that if you're the person who's got to do marketing in your practice, there's 3 things that you need to do. We're going to talk about these in general terms today, and in the next 3 episodes, we're going to deep dive into each one of these things so that you're going to have a really good grasp on what you should be doing. So I think first, number 1, you need to do an inventory. You need to figure out where you are, what it is that you're actually putting out there how many people are coming in, getting all of the basic data that you're going to need to hopefully make some decisions and make not only just good decisions, but informed decisions based on data that you have. If you don't have anything at all, if you're a brand new practice, a startup practice, or something like that, I don't think that it's necessarily going to be as long or in depth, but it's important still to take inventory. Number 2, you need to plan. And why should you plan? What should you plan? How detailed should you get? We're going to talk about all of the most important things when it comes to planning. And then third, we're going to talk about executing, because taking inventory and planning doesn't really make a huge difference unless you actually execute your plan and begin to work it. So I'm going to help you with tools and tricks and tips and things that are going to help you to be far more efficient in your marketing. Not only that, you're going to be able to understand reporting and make decisions based on data, which is very, very important when you're doing marketing, because ultimately, if you're not sure what's working, then you're not going to be able to be successful. So that's the 3 steps that we're going to talk about, which is inventory, taking inventory of where you are, planning, trying to figure out where you want to be going, and then executing, actually doing it. So let's talk about inventory briefly here. What do you need to be doing when you're doing inventory of your marketing and your practice? So with taking inventory, I think your first spot that you really need to focus in on is your site. I think your site is important to get in line. Number 1, you need to be making sure, is it mobile responsive? Do you have analytics in it? We're going to go a lot deeper into this, but I think it's good to just consider where you are. Start thinking about the things that you have in place, the things that you might need to be doing. So as you're listening to this, maybe jot down a few ideas that you have, and we're going to kind of go through this pretty quickly here, and then we'll get a lot more in-depth next time. But do you have a site that's functional? Is it set up for direct response? Is it easy to understand what your hours are, what your services are, where you are, what you offer, why they should choose you, things like that. Do you have analytics set up inside of it? Do you have reporting for those analytics? Do you have Facebook pages, Instagram pages? Do you have everything hooked up inside of your website? And then the next kind of step along that line is that the systems. Do you have things set up to make your life easier? Do you have marketing automation set up? What do you have? What tools do you have? What scheduling tools do you have? What scheduling tools do you use? Do you have, Facebook pages? Do you have Meet Edgar? Do you have Instagram? Do you have Google Data Studio set up? What other kinds of things are you using in your practice? Number 3, I think that's very important to understand, is what are your current limitations that you have right now when it comes to yourself as the marketer? Do you feel comfortable with any platform in particular? Are you comfortable with Facebook but not Instagram? Are you comfortable with Instagram but not Facebook? Do you understand Google AdWords? Do you understand YouTube? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses as a marketer? And if you're not sure, then it's okay to be not sure too. We're going to talk about how to develop these things in the next episode. Then we need to get an assessment of the current content that you have. I like to use what's called a content silo so that you're able to really understand, okay, we have these offers, we have these lead magnets, we have these landing pages, we have these content that are relevant to our offers, and really understand where you are from an asset standpoint. And then understand where you're currently getting your traffic from, where the majority of your leads are coming from, who are the people that are visiting your site, how are they getting there, what's their experience once they're there, and understanding just in general how people are experiencing your practice as well as how they're getting there. It's very important to understand that so that you can hopefully grow areas that are more effective in terms of your specific marketing tasks are more effective. So once we have kind of all of those things in place and understood, it's time to then take that information and make a plan. I think plans start with goals. What do you actually want to be doing? Do you want to be doing specific services? Do you want specific kinds of customers? What are your goals for your practice? Do you want to grow like boarding in your practice, or do you want to grow dentistry services in your practice? What is it that you're actually wanting to do? Because if you just say, I want new pet owners coming to our practice, that's good, but let's get a little bit more specific, because we're going to be able to be more effective when we're specific. So we'll talk about planning. I think that setting up your goals is important. So then you can take the next step, which is setting up your avatars, understanding your client personas and who it is that you're really targeting at the end of the day, so that you can understand how they're going to get to your site or how they're going to get to your practice and what steps they need to take. We need to map out and figure out what your customer journey looks like. How do they get from being strangers to being clients and customers in your practice? And we plan that out. So I think too that a lot of times planning is important, just from this perspective that when you set a plan up, you have a specific goal in mind, and then you're going to hopefully understand the KPIs around that goal. And so I think one of the biggest parts and benefits of planning is actually understanding how we're going to measure and track success. So that needs to be part of it. And then you're going to be able to understand if it's actually working, which is going to be very important. If you're the person tasked with marketing, part of that is you have to be able to communicate with the people around you if it's working or not. If you're the practice owner, not so much. But if you're not the practice owner, well, if you're the practice owner, you really want to know, because it's going to affect your bank account. But if you're the person that's responsible for the marketing, communicating that value of what you're actually providing for them is just as important as actually doing it. Because if they don't know that it's working, they're going to be busy. But I can't tell you how many times I've had clients who have said, like, hey, practice is going great, but I did put a new magnet on the side of my car. So maybe it's not the amazing work that's happening inside of the ads. Maybe it's that car sign driving people in. I kid you not, that's happened before. So even if you do a great job and things are working well, if you can't communicate that it's working well, you're not going to get credit for it. And that's important for sure. Because you need to understand what's working so that you can then scale that up and get more of what's working. Then finally, we have the execution phase. And this is really, really important. Are you a person, depending on your limitations, how are you going to get this done? If you're considering maybe hiring marketing companies or web development teams or things like that, what are some of the things that you should be worried about or focused on? How often do you need them to be responsive to you? What kind of ways are they going to communicate how things are working? Just because you're the person tasked with the marketing, that's very broad, right? That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be the person inside of Google AdWords. So we're going to talk about how to really decide what it is that you need based on your current inventory and the plan that you have, to what you should be spending your time doing and what you should be creating and managing, and what you should be outsourcing to other people. So if you are somebody who wants to do everything in-house, that's totally cool. I'm going to tell you some of the best tools and tricks and tips that you can use to get better at execution. But I think that it's very important that you understand, how much time you have, and think about, if based on the inventory of your personal skill set plus the time that you have, what are some of the things that you're going to need to delegate so that you can effectively get everything finished that you're hoping to get done. So, it ultimately doesn't get done until you do it. You need to have a clear plan and then execute that plan. And then alongside of that execution is going to be measuring and management. I think that a lot of times people are kind of derailed because they have reporting that doesn't get sent to them automatically. That's why we're going to be talking about Google Data Studio. Google Data Studio is a great product, or having a dashboard that gives you all of your most important KPIs. When you're executing too, and especially if you're busy, if you're the person who's doing everything, if you're busy, then I think making sure that you limit the number of KPIs that you're actually tracking to the most important ones. Not just, we're going to track everything. I need to know what the bounce rate of my blog site pages are. Does that ultimately help you? I mean, it does in a sense, but if you're super busy, you probably should be looking kind of at bigger, higher level data. And so we're going to get really in-depth into that there. But I think that a lot of practices, they're probably doing themselves a disservice by kind of just approaching it with, not being thoughtful in their approach. And so really sit down and think about this. If you're going to be putting somebody in charge of your practice's marketing, this is the way that people encounter and engage with your brand. And that first impression can only happen once, which is unfortunate and fortunate at the same time, because you have the chance to either blow it or win big with that first impression. And so you need to make sure that you put thought into this and you understand how you want people to perceive your brand, what you want to represent, and how really they're going to come from being a stranger into a client in your practice. So there's a lot of thought that needs to go into this. I think before you start down this path and down this journey, maybe really think about, is this something that you really want to do? Because if it's something that you don't want to do, then try to find somebody else who actually wants to do it, and they get to do it. They get to wake up every day and say, hey, man, I get to go and do marketing. I'm excited about that, because that's a big difference, and it's going to have a lot different results versus somebody who has to do it and is forced and is dragging their feet the whole way through. So I hope that makes sense. I think that this is going to be a great series, and I'm looking forward to helping you. If you have any questions, comments, you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll see you on next week's episode, where we get into getting into your inventory on your digital assets, your marketing skills, the time that you have to be spending on this, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you next episode. Bye.